What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and bringing another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Saturn and Scorpio in the 4th house. Now, when you talk about Saturn, Saturn's known as the greater malefic. So, there's Saturn gets a bad rap. Saturn can bring about restrictions, it can bring about delays, constraints. Saturn requires us to be patient and because Saturn is about order and maybe sets these limits, but the nature of Saturn is to help us endure. It's to help us show us where we can be more resourceful, where we can need careful planning, and that slowness and that patience allows us. I find when we work with Saturn, Saturn can help us to, and we put in that discipline and show that tenacity. Saturn can reward as much as Jupiter does, but Saturn just has more requirements in order to do so. But Saturn is one, like the other planets, are there to bring about this betterment for our lives. So that's something to be mindful of. And then we have Scorpio. Scorpio is traditionally ruled by Mars, and their element is, or excuse me, their modality is fixed. And so the fixed signs have this ability to concentrate on something. There's a focus, a tenacity, a perseverance that comes with the fixed signs. And their element that they encompass is water. And water, where it can deal with these emotions. And one thing I like to talk about with Scorpio, and I was actually talking with someone with their sun and Mercury in Scorpio, that Scorpio and other Scorpios placements that are people with suns and Scorpios. Scorpio is more than just this kind of darkness that happens. Scorpio feels everything, just like Cancer does, just like Pisces does. But the thing with Scorpio is that their challenge is to not get too fixed on one given thing, because when they do, they can feel something very strongly. And so that's something you have to be aware of, what you're taking in your environment, because where there are a lot of strong emotions, there's a lot of strong intuition that comes with Scorpio as well. Scorpio has this ability they're very sharp and able to sense the subtleties, the things that aren't said and the things that are felt. But that's something to pay attention to as well, because their gender is feminine. So there's a receptivity that goes on. So you want to pay attention to the emotions and things of others that you are picking up on, because you do have the capacity to feel them on a more intense level than what maybe someone without Scorpio placements is feeling. So yeah, you do want to exercise those boundaries and know what is yours and what isn't. And then you get to the 4th house. The 4th house is one of the angular houses, so there's a lot of energy that comes with the angular houses. And it was known in traditional astrology as the subterranean place, considering it's like the lowest part of our chart. And the topics that the 4th house covers deals with like our home space, where you come from. And this can deal with like our parents, our home, and even like the end of life. So when you combine all of these things, some factors to pay attention to when we're working with, like, especially the malefics and the benefics, you want to see whether you have like a day or a night chart. Because if you have a day chart, like myself, I look forward to Saturn transit. I'm in the middle of a Saturn transit right now, and it's going fantastic. Overall, it's required work, but it has been. I'm reaping the benefits for sure from that. Whereas a night chart, my partner's going through a Saturn transit as well, and it's been tough. He's going through an opposition where I'm going through a trine, and so you want to see where what your relationship with Saturn is, as far as like in those regards. 2, you'd have Leo rising by whole sign. And 3, you'd also want to, and then there's definitely more things to pay attention to, but you want to see where Mars is at. How is Mars witnessing Saturn? Is there more of a trine or a sextile or even a conjunction, or, conjunctions can be tricky too. Or is it witnessing it by square or aspect? And I just don't mean just by specific degree, even just by whole sign. So that's just something to pay attention to as well if you're working with that kind of house placement. So apply to the house placement that you're working with as well. But combining this, One thing that, oh, and Saturn, here's a fourth thing too. Saturn is going to be responsible for your sixth and your seventh house, which your sixth house is of your house of health, of servitude, of injuries, enemies, things along those lines. And then the seventh house can deal with your partnerships, marriage, and partnerships deals can be with like business, mentors, things along those lines. So when you combine all of these things together, maybe there were some things in the home space that may have restricted maybe restricted the jobs that you wanted to do. Maybe you wanted to do this one thing, but the area that you were living in didn't allow it. Or maybe there was something where you had to take care of a parent possibly. And not necessarily because you were forced to, but because maybe there was that love that was behind there. Because like I said, Scorpio can experience very strong emotions of all ranges of emotions. And so maybe you taking care of a parent, and that may have restricted the opportunities that you had for different occupations, or maybe even restricted the relationships that you could have been involved with possibly. So that might be something that I would talk with someone about, that what is that relationship looking like, and trying to broaden, get outside of that space. Another thing that I could see coming up too is maybe having this intense attachment to, if not just like your family home, but maybe to just the home in general. Maybe you happen to do like a position where you work from home and you don't get out much. Maybe that's because that Saturn's going to form a square with that relationship house, and so you may really have to put out some effort in order to get yourself into a, maybe even just like a romantic endeavor, but even just like forming just like friends or anything along those lines. Or maybe you grew up in like a homeschool type of environment, and maybe some challenges are learning to interact with people and having those and developing those sort of like social skills and learning those kind of social cues and things along those lines, and not necessarily limiting yourself, but knowing that there's just like how there's an order in this jungle. And so that might even be some ways that maybe you had noticed some restrictions, and that could potentially bring up a lot of strong emotions where you don't want to leave the house. What is that called, where it's like, I think it's agoraphobia, where it's like fear of like leaving the house. Don't look that up, don't quote me on that one, but that might even be something that could potentially comes up. But another thing that maybe this could come up as is a maybe home was something that you didn't have available to you possibly. Maybe this was something where you yearn for this feeling of home, this sense of family, but maybe with Saturn, maybe there was something where maybe addictions came into the mix possibly. Maybe there was just like there wasn't maybe there was like adoption possibly, or maybe you grew up in like the system, or was like where you had to go kind of like bouncing around from homes possibly, or however this may look. And there may be such a strong sense for home that maybe you might sacrifice things for you, maybe even potentially sacrifice your health possibly, or something along those lines, in order to take care of something so that you can have this thing. So there's a lot that this could potentially come on. And keep in mind, I'm just speaking very generally when I'm talking about this. You definitely need the rest of the chart to get a full picture of this. So if you happen to have this placement, or if you know someone who's working with this placement, you feel comfortable sharing this with, then in the comment section below, leave a comment. Talk about what are some things that may have come up, maybe even that if something resonated with you, what are some things that maybe I didn't cover that you can broaden on a little bit more. So yeah, definitely leave that down. And also, if you're wanting to work with me and get a better, closer reading about how this may have shown up for you, what are some different ways, some different things that you didn't think of how to maybe work with this thing, so that because astrology is ultimately, even with Saturn, I'm a big proponent of Saturn. It's all meant to help you grow. It's all meant for your betterment. It's how you're working with these tools. So if that's something that resonates with you, all that information is down in the description box below. And come over to my other channel, Alchemist, if you wanted to deal with some lunar shenanigans as well. But until next time, keep raising that consciousness and that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one. Later.